All right, it's district breakdown time. There's Professor Diggs on location. I love it when he's on location. This time we find him up in the great DMV area where I'm from, but a little bit further up in Maryland. He loves it up there. He does. He just doesn't. I can't admit it. That's why he's wearing that ridiculous cowboy shirt. I guess he's got to though. But we're talking 9-6A. Diggsy, talk to me about this district. It's a 9-team district, and last year Garland was star-studded, and they went ahead and won that district. But those stars have gone elsewhere, and what has that left us with?
Yeah, Garland, and then they had the first round loss to Tyler Legacy, and it just, I remember watching that, listening to that game on the radio as I was heading over to Bobby V's getting ready for the dump, and just feeling, I was heartbroken for Garland because Garland had been so down for so long, and this was the year. Last year was the year, and then just to lose in heartbreaking fashion, my heart broke for Garland. I think Garland is going to be in the playoff mix this year, but I do think they are started to head on the road down. I think this district is going to look a little more like it's looked maybe 2015 to 2018, as opposed to the last couple of years with North Garland and Garland jumping up in the rankings. I think Garland, Nathan Mitchell is a very highly touted quarterback. I think people are speaking very highly of him. They've got the really good defensive tackle to Marcus McNeil coming back. So Garland had other good players other than those big studs that graduated last year that built up the infrastructure. They started to taste winning a little bit. So I don't think Garland is going to drop all the way off of our radar. But I do think that they're going to be on the lower half of the playoff qualification bracket. I think I'm going to have them third in the district. I don't think they're going to fall all the way off, but it also wouldn't surprise me because of the parity of Garland ISD. Garland ISD really reminds me a lot of when we talked about 6-6A, how everything was middle heavy in 6-6A, that, from 3 to 8, you could make a justification. You wouldn't be surprised if you saw any of those teams make the playoffs. I think there's a little more of a tier setup in Garland ISD. In fact, I'm going to give a little ranking spoilers right now. I did not rank anybody in Garland ISD in our top 25. So I think there's going to be some teams feeling a little disrespected that they're not getting the area coverage. But I just remember 2 or 3 years ago, Saxe won district, and Denton Braswell played them on a Thursday night and got 6th in their district and beat them by 2 touchdowns. So when these teams play some teams from outside the district, they don't fare as well. And then we see in 10-6A sweeping 9-6A last year, they've got to start winning some of those big games and to get more recognition and respect among the area. But that's not to say there's not good teams and there won't be quality football here. But again, when you look at them playing Rockwall and Rockwall Heath, they're not quite to that level yet.
Well, who do you see in your tier situation here? Who do you see rising to the top? What's the cream that rises to the top here in 9-6A?
Well, when I look at things, I think number one is Saxe, and Saxe has a transfer quarterback in there, Victor Jesus Gutierrez. He's looking good. People are talking about him. And their defense, I think, when you look up and down the district, this is the best defense. And I think Saxe is going to win this year, not on the offensive side of the ball, but the defensive side of the ball. I see James Adams coming back, Khalees Harris, Jonathan Chien. And I think Saxe is going to be loaded for bear, and I think they're going to be a fantastic defensive side of the ball, and I think their offense is going to be good enough to win, some 28-7 games in district. So I think Saxe is the top of the class. But I also really like Naaman Forest. But Naaman Forest, they're going to have the big names. Marcus Steele, everybody's going to talk about him. You're going to have clips for days on him. Justice Perales, a fantastic offensive lineman. And now they got D'Angelo Perales coming in as a sophomore quarterback, expected to win that job early on. Hayden Denton, at a good cornerback. But when you really look from kind of 10 to 22 and beyond, Naaman Forest, at least as far as established players who you can count on from an outside perspective, and that's not to say you can't count on them from an inside perspective. I just don't see a bunch of players immediately jumping out that I go, okay, I can hang my hat on that as somebody who I know can make a play in a big situation. So I think Naaman Forest is a second team, and a lot of these teams have different issues as far as depth. And depth is really a thing you're going to hear me say over and over, because when I look at these teams, I'm like, oh, I like this team, but they don't have the depth. Or, oh, they got 2 really good players, but then after that, it really drops off. And like Wiley East is like that for me. Wiley East is one of those teams that you look at Anthony James and Terrell Washington Jr. and you go, that is a good team. And then you like look at everybody else on the roster, and you see a lot of youth. You see a lot of undersized players for 6A. And then you think about Wiley East coming up from 5A Division One, didn't make the playoffs in 5A Division One, and really wasn't competitive in a lot of the 5A games in the second half of the season. How can you trust them to win it, to make the playoffs in 6A? So I'm a little bit skeptical about Wiley East, even though I absolutely love their skill players. So we talked about, I think, got Saxe, Naaman Forest, and Garland at the top. I think you can have any one of four teams in that fourth playoff spot. I've got Rowlett, maybe a little bit of a bias. You can hear the black and gold onesie there. Harris Boyd, the quarterback at Rowlett, played for Plano East, started for Plano East as a sophomore. His family moved to Rowlett, made the decision to move to Rowlett. And he got injured last year against Plano. So it's kind of limited his recruiting opportunities, but he's been out there now, and he's gone to some camps, and he's gotten Big Ten offers. So I think he's going to be a player who's going to step up, but does he have the infrastructure around him to help out? Not many returning linemen. We talked about off-air. Corey Kirkland's coming back, a great player. They've got a couple of players on the secondary, and Jaden Ellis and Joseph Brooks, who you go, okay, they're going to be hard to throw deep on, but their offensive line, defensive line, I think has some questions. But with a good returning quarterback coming back, I think that they're going to slide into that fourth spot. But another good returning quarterback coming back, Lakeview Centennial, has Jonathan Hester, and North Garland, who made the playoffs last year, has God's Power Wawehe coming back. And so I think both of them are going to be in that conversation for the last playoff spot as well.
Yeah, North Garland is a interesting talking point there, because it's been so while since they've been to playoffs. They made it last year, and they got God's Power behind them, so you gotta like that. So talk a little bit more about North Garland, but I also want to hear a little bit about Wiley, because you haven't mentioned them, and I'm sure Amo Nation's sitting there wondering, when is he going to talk about the Pirates? I don't understand what's going on here.
They love me in Wiley as it is. But when I was really researching Wiley, what they've got coming back, I saw Wiley play Plano East last year, and that was one of Plano East's 2 wins last year. And Plano East was up 35-0 on Wiley early in the third quarter before they called off the Dogs. And then I look at what they have coming back this year, and Cameron Pruitt, a fantastic receiver. He made his mark in that game. Austin Fabian, a good linebacker. But there's not a lot of talent at Wiley right now. At least that is established talent that's getting recruiting looks. That's not to say that almost spirit won't come in there and players play above their pay grade. But when I look at everything that they return and where they fell last year, I've got Wiley more at the bottom of the district. And but again, the distance between the bottom of the district and the playoffs in this district is not a wide gap. But I think I have Wiley closer to the bottom of the district than the top of the district. North Garland has a new coach coming in there. Their coach left to take a job in Little Elm. He was a fantastic coach, and I think he really was a lighting fire behind North Garland in their success last year. Afoso Ossis is coming back at receiver, so God's Power will have a target to throw to. They'll have Jaden Davis coming back, but I'm really worried about the depth of their defense, and I'm really worried about the receiver core, and I'm worried about their offensive line, because when you look at North Garland over the last 10 years, those players haven't been there. And last year they were there with some of these skill players that we talked about. A lot of them graduated, and now North Garland is going to have 3 really skilled, kind of like the big 3 like the Cowboys had back in the day. And I don't know if they're going to have anybody who can protect God's Power. And I think when you have like a Naaman Forest who has a killer defensive line, they may not be able to score against a team like Naaman Forest. And the same with Garland. I think they're going to have a hard time moving the ball consistently. I think they'll hit big plays with some of these big players, but I think they're going to have a hard time getting out in space and doing the things that they need to do. So I have them on the lower end of the district, and I've got Wiley right under them. But North Garland, they're going to have a new coach. They're going to have to replace some of those infrastructure key players. So I don't know if they're going to get back to the playoffs, but last year, I know my guy, Derek Ray Johnson, it was a big story for him to see his alma mater get back in the playoffs, and I was happy for them, but I don't know if they're going to be able to replicate that feat this year.
All right, let's wrap things up with 1 through 9, and with the season a couple weeks away, let's figure out who you got in your top 4 playoff spots, and then the rest of the way.
Let's do it, Ward. We got Saxe number 1, Naaman Forest number 2, Garland number 3, Rowlett number 4, Wiley East number 5, Lakeview Centennial number 6, North Garland number 7, Wiley number 8, and South Garland number 9.
That's excellent. That's excellent. They'll be playing 10-6A, and that's who we're going to talk about next week. When you come on back, you'll probably be back in the home state. But while you're out there, go to the Nats game. Go check out Jesuit star Josh Bell cracking a home run for you, and say that's DFW's own.
Now, I don't know if 10-6A they're going to let you have me on because, I'm not the most popular person in Rockwall right now. Haven't been for a little while. So we'll see if you'll find somebody. Maybe you'll get Greg Riddle on here or something for 10-6A. But I hope you'll have me on. It's my hope. I'll get to do it. We'll see.
We'll bring you out there, buddy. We'll get you back. I appreciate you joining us, Diggsy, and have a safe trip back.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Cricket knows you work hard for your money, so they want you to keep more of it. Switch to Cricket and don't overspend another second. Smile, you're on Cricket.